And I'm also going to share screen now. All right, I guess we can get started. Thank you all for coming. So last year we started a professional development series out of the environmental science program. And with that, we got a lot of feedback on things that students would like to see. And one of the things we got feedback on was, and many of us in our offices all the time, how to apply to grad school. And I know a little story before we get started on when I applied to grad school. When I applied, the first year I applied, I was at Eastern Michigan, and I was in a school where we didn't do a lot of stuff with faculty, and there wasn't a big research program. And I cold applied to graduate schools. I just submitted applications. I got in 0 places I applied, and it wasn't till I met someone, they're like, that's not how you apply to grad school. You have to reach out to professors, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And that next year, just by doing those things, I got accepted into 4 of the 5 graduate schools I applied to. So it wasn't because of my credentials. I went about it completely wrong. So by doing this, we're hoping we provide you those tips and stuff that you don't have to go through something like that, because it was upsetting. But you also have to stick to your guns, and if you really want to go. So I'm Donna Cashin, the director of the environmental science program. And with us today are a few other faculty that are going to help run us through this series. Why don't the faculty introduce themselves first? Scott is co-leading this with me. Scott, do you want to go first? Dr. Berbet?
Sure. Hi, I'm Scott Berbet. I think I recognize a lot of you from class, so great to see you all here. So I am a assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Science and Geology. And, you know, I think I was in grad school relatively recently. Seems like a long time ago now. When I was applying, I was lucky enough to have a very good advisor who saw, you know, the potential for me in a graduate program, and told me a lot about how to apply, how to get in contact with professors ahead of time, and kind of what to say. So I had a pretty easy go of it my first time around, thankfully. Hopefully we can make that the case for you guys as well.
All right, because I can't see all the faculty on, can you just jump on and give a quick hello?
Okay, maybe I can start now. I'm Shi Jianlu, assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Science and Geology. Probably like haven't met like maybe most of you, but I believe I will like gradually I will know most of you soon or later. Okay, in fact. I applied graduate school in 2008 and I started my PhD in 2009. And unfortunately, it's 2008. It's so economic is down, and there's not too much opportunity for PhD students, especially international students. So yeah, that's. Fortunately, I get like a few offers finally, but it's a long process. Okay, that's my introduction.
I think that's really great to have perspective from an international and the downturn and the challenges too. So it's great to have you with us today. Thanks. All right, anyone else? I thought I saw Mark on board, Dr. Baskron.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Donna and Scott, thank you for arranging this. I think this is very impressive. We have 9 students as of now. My name is Mark Baskron. I serve as the chair and I'm a professor in the department. The I think they all have lots of wisdom, so there's not a whole lot I want to. Sorry, Glenn. I don't know what is wrong with this, whether it is with the room or internet. Can you all hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You're just staticky. Yeah, but you're fine.
Okay, all right. So coming back to, so they have a lot of added wisdom. I think already someone said this, I will just repeat it, that I think if you are particularly interested in one particular area of science, look for a very active research group and find out a person or two in that area, and then read some of their paper. You may not understand everything, at least read some abstracts so that you get to know what they are doing. And then when you make the first contact by email, that they should get the impression that you have done some background reading before you contact them and you really are interested. So when your application goes, they look at it more favorably, saying that the student has taken the extra effort of knowing what I am doing, my research area. I think that is one I would like to add to the existing ones.
I'll go next. I guess, hey everyone, I am Dr. Glenn Hood from Biological Sciences. It's nice to see some familiar names. And for those of you who haven't met me, nice to meet you. Yeah, I have a similar experience to Donna. I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was doing when I was thinking about graduate school. And it was incredibly overwhelming. And so I knew I was interested in like insect evolution. So someone said, well, you know, you need to like email some people that do insect evolution. And so I Google insect evolution, and there's 10,000 people that are faculty members at all kinds of cool universities that are doing insect evolution. And so it's like, I was massively overwhelmed. And so, you know, ask questions during this informational session. And I think as Donna goes through the slides, we'll answer a bunch of them, but we recognize that it is different, and it is kind of scary, and it is overwhelming, but hopefully you can leave here today with a little bit more confidence about how to approach thinking about and applying to grad school.
All right, and I think I saw Gianluca. There he is.
Yeah, can you see me? Hi guys, everybody. I think I know almost everybody there. Hi, I'm Gianluca Felix Esperone, officially in the email. I'm a lecturer / data GIS data analyst in the Department of Environmental Science and Geology since 2012, actually now, so almost 10 years. I have applied already 2 times for graduate school. Once in Italy, I have a Master of Science in Geology, and then I have a Master of Art in Urban and Environmental Science here at the University of Illinois in Chicago. And the most recent one, well, I'm finishing my first year PhD program in the Civil and Environmental Engineer department. So I started last semester. So pretty fresh memories about applying to graduate school. And what I suggest you is not only, as everybody else mentioned, you know, find a good advisor. You don't need to have a clear idea right away, but while you're doing it, try to focus on what you really want to do. And then the last thing I can suggest is always try to have an experience abroad, because that is a huge, huge help in opening scientific mind and everything. Okay, so that is something that maybe, you know, during your PhD, if you have like not now, but if you have the possibility to do an exchange program for 1 year, you know, go for it. I don't think your advisor will mind to have you abroad. So actually, it's a good experience to do. Okay, but in any case, I'm done. So let's do this seminar and see you around. Okay.
All right, and for the faculty, I know I've had some students reach out to me that are not able to attend and wanted the video for this, and I will send it to them. But I also said if they have questions on any of the particular bullets or any of the, maybe they're more in line with your field than Scott or I, to reach out to any of the faculty. So students may reach out to you with questions on that. So we'll get started, but this is supposed to be a very interactive thing. I put together essentially one slide that is kind of an agenda. So it triggers us to think about some things. And then it's just following up with slides, which are advice from all the different faculty. So the first slide is just some things to think about. Scott, did you want to go through this one and then I'll pick up on the next one?
Sure, feel free to jump in whenever you want. So, and also anybody, jump in with questions if you have them as we go along. So one of the best ways to, prepare for graduate school and to, prepare to apply and hopefully get accepted is to get some experience during your bachelor's. This can be undergraduate research, or it could be something as simple as a directed study of a smaller research or investigation into a research topic, even if you're not directly doing the research yourself. So one of the excellent sources for funding for this is a UROP, Undergraduate Research Opportunity. Is that, I think, the acronym? Okay. So if you are interested in doing undergraduate research, then it seems like there is a deadline coming up. Contact a faculty member. I think most of us here are excited to do undergraduate research. Put together an idea and put together a proposal. So that is due right before Thanksgiving, it looks like.
Yeah, there's two of those. There should be one opening up for the spring, summer too. And I know I often will just share with students examples of your proposal. So if you find one, so you can either have a topic that's completely your own, or you can, like Scott said, go to the faculty and ask them and develop topics. And so it also looks very good on your grant, on your CV, because you will actually, it's a grant awarded to you. I think the faculty gets like $700, students $2,500 to $3,000 or something like that. So it's the experience, but you do also get some funding.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the nice things about it as well. I've seen some people also do good work with honors theses. So anything like that where you can show that you have engaged with a research topic is always very desirable for people who are looking for graduate students. So personal statement, also very important. Try to think as you're writing your personal statement, what is really motivating you? What kind of research topic motivates you? Why are you excited to be working on it? Bring in any details that you can.
Yeah, and I think when the faculty sit around the table and they look at these applications, so it's different than applying to a bachelor's program where the applications go into the general university. These do go through there, but then they end up on the faculty's desk. And there's kind of a joke, at least in biology, there are two types of personal statements. One, where my mother died or watched someone had cancer and I want to go into medicine. Two, I ran through fields with butterflies and like playing outside, I want to go into ecology. Those are nice ways to start it, but you want to dig deeper. You can say these are the things that interest you, but like Scott said, the more you can put in a little bit from your school, if you have those research experience, then talk about your research experience and talk about how graduate school will help you in your future. So it's kind of giving both ways. So you're giving really specific details. in addition to the broad, and what things, how graduate school is important to you and why.
Yeah. What your long-term career goals are. Why is it, something that is really necessary for meeting your goals? And in terms of experience, if you haven't had a chance to do research, if you've had a class that has any sort of involved, self-propelled study or project, then talking about your experience with that. Both of my upper level courses are project based, so I try to ask people to follow up on their own interests with some of the methods that we learn, and even discussing something like that in terms of how it got you interested in research might be helpful.
Oh, and another key point that's really important to think about is this is your opportunity also to speak to people and tell them anything you need to tell them. For example, if you do not have the GPA you want to have, you tell them maybe why. You give explanation if there's an explanation. Or for me, I know my first 2 years of college, I was, I was kind of one of those college students that probably engaged in a lot of extracurricular activities more though than I should have with my academics. And then in my sophomore year, I finally discovered that I wanted to go down this field. Before, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And in my personal statement, I explained that I'm like, my grades were lower my first 2 years. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Then I met this professor. I really became excited about aquatic ecology. And if you calculate my GPA for my last 2 years, I'm a 3.9. So even though that the first 2 years pulled it down, it gives that opportunity. You can address anything in it. You can talk about something in your life that may have made it difficult to work. You're supporting a family. You had to work full time. You had a sick parent. Anything like that. So this is the place to make yourself human. And perseverance is just as strong as GPA and dedication, in my opinion. So this is your opportunity to show dedication and perseverance, and have you be not just a metric of a number of a GRE or a GPA.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Oftentimes people feel like they'll be overlooked or will have trouble getting into programs if they, had a couple of bad years. And that's not necessarily true. And to Donna's point, I think professors really love hearing that professors are inspiring. So that's never a bad thing to mention. So I think we'll probably get more into personal statements later on, some of the other slides, but contacting professors. This, I think, is a really big one. This was kind of the one thing that, I really took away from my advisor as an undergraduate in terms of applying to grad school. So before I put in any applications, I sent out emails to basically each seismologist at all of the universities that I was going to apply to. I think it was probably like 3 times 6, maybe 20 or so. Relatively personalized. I took a look at each of their research sites. I didn't really know how to use Google Scholar back then. I think scientific work is a lot easier to find now. But I looked into professors that I was interested in working with, and I wrote them a personal email saying, I'm interested in this aspect of your research. I'm thinking about applying to your program. Are you looking for students this year? That's not always a given, not everybody has funding to bring in graduate students every year, depending on the kind of program that you're looking for. So contacting them will at very least help you figure out whether they're looking for students and give them a chance to let you know what sort of students they're looking for. Now, how to find them? That's a great question. For me, my advisor just basically said, here are 6 good places for what you want to do with nice professors that are friendly, personable, and good advisors. So that's kind of a best case scenario, I think. Definitely, if you're interested in a particular research field and there is somebody here at Wayne State that works in that field, go talk to them. And maybe they can recommend people that they've heard are, well, people that have a strong program, people that are good at working with students, maybe even their own collaborators. Apart from that, you might want to dip into the scientific literature. Look for papers that interest you. Check out who wrote them, and check out their websites. Anything else on that one?
No, what about any other of the faculty or any questions up to this point on the things we've talked about from the students?
I just want to add on what Scott said. When I moved in the United States and I was waiting for my work permit to come in, and I was applying for the graduate school for the master there. In the meantime, while waiting for, not only I searched all the professors from Italy before even coming here, and I sent them emails and everything, but I also, in my experience, what I did, I found a volunteering opportunity at the Film Museum in Chicago that were doing the GIS lab at the Film Museum. So I stayed there like 1 year while all the paperwork came in. And then, that gave me a lot of research experience in the United States, because I didn't have experience of research in the United States. So that helped me a lot. The professor was great. He wrote me a reference letter that is important, And so even if, you think it's a volunteer opportunity, just take it. It's everything you need, is helping you building your skills and your curriculum. Okay, so I just wanted to add that on what Scott said.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly another excellent sort of experience that you can promote as you're applying to schools. All right, so next up, the GRE. I think that this one kind of varies from university to university, whether or not a program requires it, and whether or not they actually pay it much attention as a good criterion for accepting students. For my own part, I will only look at the GRE score because I don't think that our program requires it. I'll only look at the score if no other information about the student is really present. Like if their personal statement is not there, if I don't know much about the school where they're applying from, so that I can't really judge or put their grades into context. Because certainly within the US, we have a certain sense of how a student is done with a certain grade point average. International students, more of a toss-up. Some systems, the grades mean something completely different. Is that everybody's kind of experience as well?
Yeah, there's more and more schools that are not using them anymore because there's a lot of discussion about whether GREs have a tendency to favor certain groups of students, so a little bit discriminatory. So we're starting to see like when I applied, everyone had to do the GRE. We had to do the GRE and a subject GRE for my applications. Now we're seeing a move towards not using them, and there's whole threads on Twitter about I'm only going to apply to schools that don't require a GRE. So that's something that's up to you and something to look at. It does cost money. I think when you do apply for the GRE, you get to send free your GRE scores to 4 or 7, something like that, schools. Biology no longer requires them at Wayne State, and it sounds like environmental science and geology does not either, possibly. So that is just kind of out there.
I think,
Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, mostly when we're looking through applications, there's never really any discussion about the GRE scores, even if they're present.
Yeah, we were using them kind of heavily more for the quantitative for international schools because it was a little bit harder to evaluate, but we don't anymore. Gianluca?
Yeah, another thing is if you're coming from outside and you're applying at graduate school here, when I applied, you had to take the TOEFL certificate of language. Now they're upgrading it, so you can take the TOEFL or you can use the Duolingo app. You know, there is like a certificate program for taking the English requirement with Duolingo. And usually if you complete, for example, in my case, because I had a master here in the United States, when I applied to the PhD at Wayne State here last year, they did not require me the TOEFL because I already demonstrated, by graduating in the master that I was able to understand and do the research. So just like another, especially for international students, if you're listening or if you will see this recording, that is something that you want to keep in mind.
Yeah.
That sounds, so any other questions on the GRE? So Scott, I'm going to recommend for the last 2 bullets, these are ones we come back to, and we actually go through the pointers, try and get the students asking questions and stuff like that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so I'm going to move to the next slide. At least I think I am. All right.
Oh, there's
You're
again
up
me.
first.
That's great.
So
Yeah.
for these, we asked all the faculty to give input on things they recommend and advice for you. And so here I do want to take more time to talk through these and have open discussion, because I have a feeling everyone in the audience has lots of questions and things that may be specific to them too, that I really want to make sure that you're engaged with the conversation. So Scott?
Sure. So my first point there, I think I talked about a little bit already. A great way to find good advisors, good programs, is to talk to your professors. This may extend only as far as their own fields in some cases, but it can't hurt, and at very least they'll be able to point you in a direction, for your own background research. When I was applying to schools, I sent out, I said about 20 emails or so. I think I heard back from about half of the people that I emailed. And I think that's probably, pretty decent. You're not going to hear back from everybody. Some people, aren't looking for students. Some people are, very busy with classes, et cetera, et cetera. So, don't get discouraged if you don't hear back from everybody. You have a better chance of hearing back if you, are conversant sort of in the research that you'd like to do with this person. A nice meaty email probably elicits more of a response than hi, are you looking for students? I'd like to apply. You know, talk a little bit about your interests and how they pertain to their interests. The next one, and I feel like this is a very good idea, but it definitely varies from field to field. But if you still have a chance to take any electives, take courses that are in skills that are going to be useful for a research career, or at least for 2 years of master's research. Subjects like statistics, programming are going to be pretty broadly applicable, at least for my overall overarching field. There probably are some other classes that are useful in kind of the life sciences part of the department. Yeah, I think having a basic understanding of programming, will open the door for a lot of things sometimes. Same with statistics. And the last one that I had here, if you have any sort of research output, a manuscript, a poster, we have at least a few classes in the department where, or in the program as well, where you're asked to put together posters on a subject. I know we have quite a few hanging in the hallway. An abstract for a conference, or even for your Europe research. Include that when you are contacting potential advisors. It kind of gives them a sense of where you are, what research you're interested in, and kind of shows that you have the chops, I guess.
All right. Well, any direct questions for Dr. Burdick before we move on? We may be overwhelming them.
There is a lot here.
And it's a process, and that's why we really wanted to do this. And by you having the slides, it can let you digest it and come back to us with questions too. A lot of my recommendations are very similar. Broadly apply, like Scott said, you put out 20 applications, only got 20 emails and only got about 10 back. The other thing to do is, and this is for me to you for everything, sometimes emails get buried too, or a faculty looks at it, says they're going to get back to themselves and they don't. So yeah. I tell students, nag me. I have no problem with nagging. I mean, there's a point of pushing it, but and students say, oh, I don't want to send another email. And oh my gosh, send that other email, because this faculty feels horrible when they miss students' emails, most faculty that I know of at least. So go ahead and nag. I know for when I apply to journals, I have a 3-month rule. I start nagging at 3 months, then it's every month, and it's every week. And I'm at every week for the journal now. For faculty, do the same thing. You send something out, give them a week or two, you haven't heard, then send another, in another 2 weeks. And if it goes on, then, then it's a lost cause. So you're contacting them. Another thing I think is really important. Sometimes you'll find these faculty and they look super good on paper, but then their lab is an absolute disaster. And it happens. There's good advisors and there's poor advisors. So my recommendation is, after you engage that faculty, say, do you want to ask if you can talk to any of their current students or past students. I make that, when someone contacts my lab, I make that offer. If I'm in a serious conversation with that student, I make that offer right away. My students know that. I'll say, I'm sending students your way. They may be contacting you. It's super important, because you can eliminate the big red flags by talking to the students and finding out what type of professor that is. There are students that need a lot more, I don't want to call it micromanaging, but a lot more attention. And then there are students that are a lot more independent. You know which type of student you are. So when contacting advisors and their students, you can say, if you know you're going to need a lot of feedback and that's important to you, then ask the students, is that faculty open for that back and forth feedback? If they're like, no, this faculty is the program manager, they never have time for me, you're on your own, and that's not what you want, then don't do that. It will not work out.
Donna, can I add a
Absolutely.
point there as well? I think that this is really, really critical. All PIs run their labs differently. There are labs where if you don't show up at 8 o'clock, that's strike one, 3 strikes, you're kicked out of the lab. There are other labs where it's like, I don't care when you come in, I just want you to get your work done. There are labs where the PI needs a month's notice if you've got a dentist appointment. There are labs where you don't ever have to mention your dentist appointment. If you're a person that can't get up early in the morning, you might not want to join a lab where you're expected to be there at 7:30 and can't leave till 8 o'clock at night. So just to hammer home what Donna said, these are conversations that may be difficult to have with the potential advisor, but they're far less difficult to have with the current students. And you can kind of ask them in a way that's still a little bit professional. And when I was transitioning from graduate to from a master's student to a PhD student, so I had a little bit more experience at this point in time. I even reached out to people that had already graduated from the labs I was interested in joining to ask them, what did you go on to do? What did your CV look like at the end of your graduate career? Because I had an idea of what my long-term goals were. And so, I wanted to talk to as many people that had had interactions and experience with the people that I could potentially go and work with and the people that were responsive to my initial emails. And so don't hesitate to do that. And it's a lot of work, but it's beneficial and it will help you in the long run.
All right, anything else?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in and say that's probably a good thing to do after, well, maybe after you've been accepted or after you've been in discussion with a potential advisor.
Yeah, I agree. And COVID times have kind of made things weird, but some places have like interview weekends where they might like invite you out to interview or even fly you out to interview. That happened to me. And that would be a good time to kind of broach some of these questions in a professional manner, particularly with grad students. And usually at these interview kinds of things, they'll set up a time where potential grad students meet with current grad students. But
yeah,
I do the same that Donna did. I offer like anyone currently in my lab to talk to potential students that I'm really interested in. But yeah, I think it's a good thing to do either once you have an interview or once maybe you've been given an offer, because you may be given more than one offer and you've got to make a difficult decision.
Yep.
Hi, I'm a student, so I do have a question for you guys.
Go for it.
Thank you. So I have already dived pretty deep into the emailing process of outreaches to potential PIs. And something that I've been running into with responses is that, hey, we're not doing like these pre-application interviews. We just look forward to seeing your interview, and then from there we'll do interviews. I've only seen this about 3 or 4 times now, but I know that the application pools for the 2021 academic year, when those applications were starting, were the highest volumes that a lot of universities have been seeing due to our unique circumstances with the pandemic. So as a student, I want to ask you guys, if a professor that you reached out to says, hey, we're not doing interviews right now, would it be overstepping to then just reach out to their current students now that they have under them in their research labs?
Oh, that one's tough. I feel if the professor is kind of pushing things aside, that maybe not every school does interviews. I never interviewed for, there was never group interviews in my graduate program. I know biology seldom does that at all. And now because of COVID, it's seldom done. So if you've reached out to an individual professor and that individual professor is not engaging, and there doesn't seem to be any encouragement, I would think it's possible that they are not looking to take students, and you can ask that directly. Anyone
Yeah.
else have a comment on that?
I do want to actually add to what you just said. So one specific professor that I reached out to, they're actively looking for PhD students. However, I think it's just because the application pool is so big, maybe they don't want, or maybe they don't have the time to schedule, 15, 20 different interviews with students pre-application. So they told me that what they're going to do is everyone's going to apply who wants to apply. And then from there, they'll do individual interviews / being invited out to the university to have an in-person interview weekend. But yeah, just it's that idea of, if they don't offer saying, hey, reach out to my students, would it be an overstep to do that?
I don't think so.
That-
I don't know if at that point in the process, you would really want to start thinking, okay, well, I need to figure out if this is a person I definitely should try to work with. But it actually sounds pretty close to what my experience was. I don't think I had any actual interviews before submitting applications. I had email exchanges, I guess, usually relatively brief, 2 volleys at most. And I did see some at a conference around the time that I applied. But any sort of, formal extended discussion kind of waited until after I had submitted my applications. So you may be, getting most of the way there just by hearing back from them through email. You've kind of put your name on the list of applications that they'll look at. They'll scrutinize a little bit more because they know you as a person already who's reached out.
Yeah, I was just going to add that that's a little bit of a weird situation. I also never did pre-interview interviews, but I emailed a lot of people, and some of those people are super interested that you emailed, right? So, I may get 16 people interested in joining my lab, but only 2 had the foresight to email me ahead of time, so I have a little bit of rapport with them. And so those applications may bubble up to the top where I'm already looking for them. If this is just a silly little example, but if you're one of the 6 labs in North America that works on charismatic African megafauna, you're fielding 500 emails a year for people that want to join your lab. And you may just be like, I can't talk to you right now, just submit an application and I'm going to screen them, and the ones that bubble to the top due to my selection criteria or how that works. So I don't know what kind of lab you're applying to, but maybe that lab just has an overwhelming number of people interested. And so they can't kind of fill you out by individual emails back and forth before the formal application process, because they really truly are screening lots and lots and lots of applications. But for a lot of faculty, that's typically not the case. If I get 3 or 4 people super interested in my lab, pre-application in a year, then that's a good number for me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not doing charismatic megafauna, and I get handfuls of people, but I've never taken a student that didn't engage me prior to the submission process. There has been a couple applications that suddenly come out of nowhere, but then by that point, I've already been talking to students and kind of have a personal relationship with them. So that it's those emails, those initial emails and getting on the radar is super important.
Yeah, I can't overstress how powerful it is in the middle of nowhere to get an email from a student that wants to go to grad school that's not simply kind of like Scott said, hey, I'm interested in grad school. Are you taking students? But I'm interested in grad school. I'm interested in the way insects interact with plants and what that means for their evolutionary ecology. Here's a little bit of that work that I've done. Here's what I'm thinking I'm interested in. Here's where I see an overlap after reading your website. Also, I thought this paper was particularly cool. That is powerful, and it's super cool to me. It puts a smile on my face, and I immediately think this person's done the legwork. They are truly interested. And then it just takes off from there. That's a lot different than just seeing a pretty good application of someone you've never heard of that never emailed you, that's strong and potentially maybe even stronger than the person I got an email from. But in some cases, like my current grad student that joined this year, I was emailing with her for 1.5 years before she joined. And that's an extreme case. You don't necessarily need to do that, but it's really powerful to get insightful and in-depth emails from potential grad students.
And that's important to know also to go into your personal statement. When you write your personal statement, I would suggest having a general personal statement, but every time you apply to a university, you tailor pieces of it to that the faculty you're interested in their research, doing exactly what Glenn just said. For him, he was talking about insect stuff. I'm interested in this and that. For me, it's, I'm looking at contaminants and invasive species. I saw your paper on this. That's why your department attracts me. So you can do that too. You may be looking at several people in that department, but make sure there is some specifics in it so you're piquing someone's interest. All right, I'll do my last one and then we'll move on to the next one. I was told when I was doing my bachelor's, which to me was really good advice, don't accept a lab unless they're paying you to go to graduate school. So many students do not realize you do not pay yourself. This is not a bachelor's program. There are some programs where you do pay yourself, especially if you're doing kind of tech programs or MA programs, some master's programs. But in general, if you look hard enough, you will find a lab that will fund you. And then, okay, the funding's not amazing, but it's enough to survive on. It's enough not to create lifelong debt from. It's different than medical school. It's different than law school. There are grants available. And if you're a stellar student and really want to dive in, there are NSF grants available where you can apply to before you're in someone's lab. And I had one of my students did this. She's one of my current students, Brittany Dabney. She was a bachelor's at Wayne State. Her and I worked on one of those NSF applications. She landed it, got the pick of any graduate school in the country because of it. And then she left me and she went to Colorado State, but then she came back to do her PhD with me. And kudos to her. For getting that. That is a bit more of a dedication and chunk, but if you can land one of those, it's amazing. All right, I'm going to move on. Glenn, that's yours. So I'll let you take this away.
Yeah, maybe this is a little bit difficult in COVID times, and maybe not everyone can find themselves in this situation, but I was lucky in that I was doing undergrad research and I went to a major conference, the Entomological Society of America's annual meetings. It was in Reno that year. And I had been emailing a number of professors whose labs I was interested in joining, and a number of them were at that conference. And so I invited them to come out to my talk, and beforehand, said, here's my talk. This is the time and the day that I'll be speaking. And that led to me meeting the person that became my PhD advisor. And we had a really wonderful and critical conversation. But, there was 5 people there that I wanted whose labs I was interested in joining. I invited all 5 of them, and my PhD advisor was the only one that shows up. So you can gain a little bit of insight into how bad they may want you, or how might they be as an advisor, right? If the other people couldn't show up for my 15-minute talk, why would I want to join their lab? And so this is a particular kind of situation not everyone can find themselves in, but think creatively and think about maybe how there could be other avenues for which you could potentially meet your advisors. In an age of Zoom, you can always propose a Zoom meeting. But and so this kind of speaks to also the importance of maybe doing undergraduate work. And then if you've done enough work to maybe be a co-author or an author on a poster presentation or a talk at a local, regional, or national, or maybe even international meeting, bring that up with your advisor, because oftentimes advisors write money into grants to fund undergraduates to travel to conferences and present.
That's a really good point. And so, remember when Scott and I were talking about the UROP proposals at the very beginning, and I said the faculty get $700. I actually give that back to the students to present at conferences with us. So several of my students, my undergraduates, got that funding, and we went to Sacramento, California for a meeting. Unfortunately, the next one got to go to Grand Rapids, but they were meetings where we had nothing wrong with Grand Rapids, but Sacramento was cooler. opportunities to go and present research. So that's another reason that Europe helps, because it helps give the faculty a little bit more travel support for their students to take them with us and do exactly what Glenn said.
Glenn, I had a very similar experience, actually, where I had an internship the summer before my senior year. And part of that internship was presenting at a conference, the results of the research. And before I went, I emailed the professors that I was engaged with at that point, and at least 2 or 3 of them did come to see my presentation. One of them asked me a question and I totally flubbed it, got it completely wrong. And he still ended up accepting me, and that's who I went to work with.
Right, and let me just give you like an example of a serendipitous thing. The person that became my PhD advisor, he came to my talk and I acknowledged I mentioned someone in the acknowledgement slide at the end of my talk that was a person that graduated or that came out of the lab I was working in as an undergrad like 6 or 8 years prior. Well, the person that was going to eventually become my PhD advisor knew that guy that came out of my undergrad lab 6 or 8 years prior and was just like good friends with that guy and loved that guy's work. So he was like, oh, if like that guy was trained in the same lab that Glenn is coming out of, then Glenn's probably like gonna potentially make a really good graduate student. So all of that was serendipitous. And of course, I didn't go to this conference because I knew they were gonna be there. I just happened to look them up and they were gonna be there, right? So sometimes, you know, you can't plan this kind of stuff out, but it's just something to think about.
Yeah. Fortunately, there's a the geology conference that happens, well, and there is a lot of environmental science there as well. That happens in December, right around the time that applications are due. So if you can get research and travel support, then it's always a great opportunity. I think my students who are applying to PhD programs now are presenting there, and hopefully we'll run into some of the people they want to talk to.
All right, next up, I think Dr. Lou's still here. Do you want to talk to the students a little bit about some of your recommendations?
Yeah, sure. So first my suggestion is the location. So you will spend like 2-3 years as a master student and maybe 4 to 6 years or even longer as a PhD student in that university or college. And you do need to choose a place you want to live for these years. Do you prefer live in like in the urban area or countryside? It's you need to decide sometimes. And second suggestion is the destination of recent graduate. That's important. It depends where you want to go. If you want to go academia or industry. So some advisors, they have like better connections in academia, and some others, they do have more connections with the industry. So for example, for my PhD advisor, he has like a really good connection with lots pesticide company. And so like if you want to go like Bayer or Monsanto, like or some other pesticide company after you get your PhD or master's, then he's a good choice. And so I think that you should like at least put this in your consideration. And yeah, the third point, yeah, I think like lots of other professors had already mentioned that. Go to the recent publications and you will find out if it's fit you or not. Yeah, and that's it. Any more comments or questions?
All right. Well, I think we have a few more slides. I think Sarah Brownlee, oh, Dan Cashin. Dan had one, he's not here right now, but he said to prepare to articulate your research interests to potential PIs you want to work with. And I think we've gone over this quite a bit, both in the personal statements, and in the cold email you're sending to them. Glenn had suggestions of attaching the poster. You can also attach a CV, but make sure you've gone in and looked at what they actually do. And when you talk to them, try and come up with ideas that build like in their field that are interest. They don't have to be laid out, but at least as Glenn talked, you're going to Glenn, you're going to talk about insects. Don't go to him and talk about African wildlife unless he gets a new grant I'm not aware of. So things like that. Sarah, Dr. Brownlee, I think I saw you jumped on. Are you here? Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, I think the thing I feel like is important to remember is that, I mean, the last point on here, you're all good enough to go to graduate school. So try to avoid that sort of self-pity that we all feel, that I felt when I was a student as well, that I can't go to graduate school. I'm not good enough. And moving up to the top point on here, getting into a graduate program is actually often more about how well you fit into a group than it is about your qualifications. So if you're concerned that you don't have a 4.0 GPA, don't be concerned about that. That's really not an indicator of how well you would work as a graduate student. So just keep that in mind. If you can, try to align your research interests with the research group or faculty member that you want to work with. Sometimes you might not be sure what your research interests are, but if you know you want to work with somebody, then tell them that your research interests are in line with what they're doing in their group. Probably they are, and that's why you want to work with that person. It's okay to send one email to one potential faculty advisor that has different research interests in it than you do to another. So you can tailor those cold emails to the people that you're writing to. And then, as Donna mentioned, it's okay to send a follow-up email if you don't hear back from somebody. We're all guilty of not responding right away and then losing track of that email as it moves down the list. We get a lot of emails. So if we don't respond right away, we may not see that email again. So you need to go ahead and send a follow-up email. And then as Donna said, again, like after a few weeks, if you've sent 2 follow-up emails, then it's probably time to say, okay, that faculty member is not looking for students. But I think the biggest thing I can push here is to believe that you can go to graduate school. If you want to, you can find a program that will work for you.
I agree with that 100%. I had a student that he had a 2.3, and he's like, well, I'm never going to get into grad school. And I was worried for him. I was very worried for him. And we worked on his application materials, and he applied broadly. He is now a fish and game, has his master's degree as a fish and game biologist out of Lake Okeechobee in Florida, and it's his dream job. And he went and got into Southern Florida University with that lower GPA after we worked on the personal statement. He made those cold contacts. So even if your GPA is low, don't give up hope. If it's what you want. And those rejections are hard. They are hard. They are crawling the fetal position and sulking hard. But if you want it, you can do it 100%. Sarah, I agree with you. I'm so glad you added that comment into here. I know you got to go too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, so that kind of wraps up. I can go back to our first slide, but I do also want to acknowledge that we do have another environmental science professional development seminar, and we're going to do some on getting jobs. And so we're going to have actually Jackson from Michigan DNR come in and give a seminar next month. But of course, you'll get lots of emails from me and Don and everyone about those. But I do want to really open this up for you, the students, to talk to us now and ask questions. Did you guys feel this was helpful?
Extremely.
Well, that's good to hear.
I do have a question, and maybe this is for another meeting. First off, thank you guys all for doing this so much. It's great to hear just different experiences and opinions on the world of graduate applications. And it's exciting and nerve-wracking time of our lives, but we're ready to do it. But is there any possible way that we, as a department, or maybe something that's through the university that I might not be aware of, like a workshop for writing our statement of purposes? I know that that's a lot of work on our end to make sure that they're tailored and unique to us, and that will make us a good candidate for those schools. But is there any way or any talk of having a workshop or a seminar that's based off solely just those SOPs and how we can stand out as individuals from the application pool?
Oh, that's a tough one to set up. That's something we can consider with, I almost feel like that might require a different format. The other faculty help me out here. I'm almost thinking that having a small group of students around a table with drafts shared of other, it is so personal. So what I do with the undergraduates in my lab is when they go to apply to grad school, I encourage them to give me their personal statements. And sometimes I look at them and like, well, here's another one, because sometimes they're way off. And then we have a couple back and forth. So I know I do that with my Europe students, my students in the lab, and that seems to work well. I would have to think about how to do a workshop on this, but the other faculty might be able to help or have ideas.
Yeah, I think I feel like this was part of the content of a seminar class that Shirley taught a few years ago, or I guess it would be seminar style class. Students worked on personal statements, CVs, maybe a class like that, or even a writing intensive style class would be a great opportunity to, have some of these writing skills, professional development skills available.
So maybe we can reach out to Shirley too. She wasn't able to make it today, to get some input from her.
It's possible that Glenn might have done something similar too.
Can I follow up? And I know that my question was very loaded in the sense of, if this is actually something that could happen or not, but would there be a chance that we could reach out individually to either one of you guys to review our statement of purposes and kind of give us advice on? Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, in lieu of anything official, then absolutely reach out to the professor that you feel most familiar, comfortable with, and they're usually going to be happy to help.
And the thing we didn't touch on here is you all need 3 letters of recommendation too. Mm-hmm. So students doing something like you said, engaging the professor in a personal statement or something like that, then you build a relationship to get them to have a letter of recommendation. From day one, you should be thinking about who's going to be your letter writers and making sure, because that's the other thing I didn't do in my undergrad. I didn't form close relationships with my teachers. That's a huge mistake, because then you don't have letter writers on the day you need them. So that's something that, think about when asking someone to help you with your personal statement. Maybe it's a professor you already have, and further deepening that relationship so they have more buy-in with you so they can write a stronger letter.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was thinking about earlier and forgot to mention, actually. As you're asking people to write letters of recommendation, probably better to go with someone, if you're talking to an instructor specifically, go with someone where you were very participatory in their class, where you really felt like you were working well, you had a lot to say in the class. rather than one where you got a better grade, probably. But we're very quiet. Is that pretty accurate, you think? Somebody that I had a lot of interactions with is easier to write a letter for than somebody who just comes in, aces all of the exams and doesn't say a word.
Julie, did you have a question?
Yeah, so like for all of the letters of rec, like, would it be better if the professors are obviously like in that field, or if you're still close with a professor that say like I'm in marching band, even though like that's not what I want to go into, like, but I've been with one of the music professors and he knows me on a personal level. Like, would that be a good option, or is that like, well, he's completely different department, so
No, that person knows you well. So
Okay.
get the one letter of recommendation from that person for you. You work with Tom Dowling, work with me, you know, you
Yeah.
then balance it with these other people. It's absolutely fine. I would even say you also can get one letter of recommendation outside of academia, somewhere you work with a research group or something like that, but try and target the two others
okay.
as academics.
Yep.
Okay, so even if it's a professor in a different department, that's still okay.
Don't get 3 from music for
Well,
biology.
right, but like, right, but you know, just because I've been working with him on a personal level for so long, you know, even though it's a different department, he could add that as opposed to someone else who could put more academic stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool, thank you.
All right, any other questions? I know we're a little bit over, so I would like to wrap it up, but I don't want to miss anyone's questions. All right. Well, hopefully I'll get this. I have a PowerPoint available. I'll put it in Canvas in some folder, and we'll have a recording available. And to the faculty that are still here, thank you so much. I think this was very helpful for the students, and really appreciate. I'm sure they are incredibly appreciative of it. So thank you, everyone.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.